With E3 just around the corner, I wanted to talk about a topic that I feel is really important right about this time of the year. So let's talk about whether or not hype can hurt a game.
Oh my! Oh my! Oh my god! Oh my fucking god!
So many games are about to be shown off to the entire world in gaming's biggest event, E3, in just a matter of days. But there's something that could honestly hurt some of your most anticipated games, and I think we should sit down and talk about this for a bit. Now, let me be clear and say that there's nothing really wrong with getting excited for a game, but I do think hype can affect your perception of a game. I'm going to personally use two games as an example in this video, but I want to go over the first one by talking about what I like to call the Last of Us effect. To explain what exactly the Last of Us effect is, I have to give some background to my experience with The Last of Us. Initially, I didn't pay any mind to the game when it was first being shown off, and I personally didn't look too much into it. It wasn't until the game had released and received critical acclaim across the board, and a friend of mine had considered it a masterpiece, so I suddenly had an urge to play it. Around that same time, I also did not own a PS3, so my friend let me borrow his console and his copy of The Last of Us so I could finally experience the game, which was nice of him. So, before I had played it, all I ever heard was how much of a masterpiece this game was, and so naturally I expected an incredible adventure. But sadly, my expectations must have been high because I finished the game feeling pretty disappointed. I personally didn't feel it was a masterpiece or even close to deserving that title. I don't think the game was bad, it just wasn't what everyone said it would be. I've had this experience quite often since then, and I've begun to call this the Last of Us effect, an instance where you buy into the hype only to expect the world and leave disappointed. Hype does more than just make you excited, it also raises your expectations on whatever game you're looking forward to. Let's take a game that people had been waiting for years, that game being Fallout 4. After Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, fans was waiting to hear about the next game for years. And when we finally got that trailer, hype for the game exploded. Then we got the game, and many within the Fallout fanbase found it very disappointing. Personally, I enjoyed the game a decent amount, but it's definitely not my favorite in the series. Some will say that the game is terrible and that they hate the game. But, I have to wonder, would some people hate the game as much as they did if there wasn't as much hype tied to it? It's perfectly possible Fallout 4 could have received all of the hate regardless, but sometimes watching through the eyes of hype will make someone see a slightly underperforming game as a terrible game with no redeeming qualities. It makes you judge far more harshly than you normally would. However, sometimes your hype ends up being totally justified and you end up loving the game regardless. Personally, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is one of those games. My hype for it was leagues beyond any other game during that time, and there was nothing I was looking more forward to. And when I finally managed to get the game in my hands and play it, well, it became one of my favorite games of all time. I simply loved it. So going back to the main point of this video, can hype hurt a game? My answer is yes, but not always. See, I think hype can be a fun experience. However, I think you just need to be a bit careful. Just keep expectations realistic, in a sense. And also stop believing in pretty much any rumor you read online about the game you're excited to play. Base your expectations on confirmed information, and keep it fair. Don't go expecting perfection simply because you like the franchise or that the idea behind the game is exciting. Hype is fun, but can hurt a game for you, if you aren't careful. As long as you're able to be excited while also staying in reality, I think you'll find yourself possibly enjoying games more, even if it's not as much as you had hoped. Now, keep in mind I'm not saying you can't get hyped over a game. It is ridiculous fun to get excited and get hyped over your favorite games or your most anticipated games. So, if you're hyped about a game, continue to be hyped. Stay on the hype train and just keep going. All I'm asking is to make sure that hype is based on real information. I'm not really sure what made me want to talk about this, if I'm going to be honest. I just had a sudden urge to talk about this. I'm pretty sure it's just because E3 is so close and hype is bound to happen for whatever gets shown off there. you guys just, let me know what you think about this entire topic. I think hype is fun to get lost in, but hey, you still have to be careful. Comment what you think down below, and I'll talk to you guys later.